Why was Master having such a hard time trying to survive his tribulation? Was it because he failed to thank the heavenly Tao? Li Changshu was puzzled. He recalled the sensation of the second heavenly tribulation he experienced, and analyzed the impact the power of the heavenly Tao had on him. It should not be because he thanked the heavenly Tao before the tribulation transcendence occurred. The heavenly Tao was fair. He did that with the mentality of giving it a try, so that should not actually have any effects whatsoever. He felt that the earlier 2 bolts of lightning were quite comfortable because they could not cause him any real harm. This logic was actually quite easy to understand. For example, many types of customers who visited a brothel to play would be flirtatiously hit by a woman who shouted, "Aya, why did you come only now?" Due to her professional ethics, she would have placed the same amount of strength behind each hit. However, based upon the strength in their bodies, each customer would feel differently about that hit. The situation was something like that. The third lightning tribulation was churning above Li Changshu, but he had gained many insights. The previous 2 heavenly lightnings seemed to have opened a door before him by just a crack, allowing him to take a peek of a mysterious yet profound world. This should be the result of the great Tao, or the heavenly Tao, coming into contact with my own Tao. Could this be the key to completing ascension? Boom! The ocean surface rippled as a result of the rumbling thunder's shockwaves. Amid the rumbling thunder, several lightning spots flickered. Another coarse bolt of lightning struck. After being struck by the bolt of lightning, Li Changshu, who was hovering mid-air, dropped by 30 feet before he managed to stabilize his body and block most of the lightning that struck him. Several bolts of lightning cracked and split above his head, striking everywhere on the ocean surface. Fortunately, the 12 Faraday cages were some distance away, or else some might have been destroyed as a result. This time, he sustained some injuries because of the heavenly tribulation. Li Changshu stared at the handful of long hair he was holding. Thankfully, it was still the long white hair he had dyed for completing the disguise. His heavenly tribulation was not any different from that of the other cultivators. The Tao robe he was wearing became slightly charred. Before the tribulation transcendence arrived, he had removed all metal items he had on him. The charred area on his robe was caused by the explosion of a jade pearl accessory. Li Changshu's body was currently covered with small flashing electric arcs. Immortal aura gathered around his arms and shoulders. A fingernail-sized portion at the top of his head was starting to convert to an immortal body. He flew back up to 90 feet above the ground. As he called upon all his Dharma powers and the converted immortal chi in him, he waited for the 4th heavenly tribulation to arrive. Roars could be heard from the vortex above him, and the tribulation cloud was churning continuously. Various strange phenomena appeared at the tribulation cloud once more, as though there were several dozens of ferocious beasts confined within the cloud itself, which were trying to escape their bindings, charge below, and swallow Li Changshu whole. Things happen in threes. The heavenly tribulation is about to undergo a change. A simple, rusty carving knife appeared in Li Changshu's right hand. However, he hesitated slightly and put it away again, choosing to continue using his flesh body, primordial spirit, and Dharma powers to resist against the heavenly tribulation. This way, the great Tao and his own Tao would continue to clash together. This was the feeling he was seeking. The door that had just been cracked open was pushed open halfway. He could already see the various beautiful sceneries in front of him, calling for him. His primordial spirit was engulfed in the lightning, entering a mysterious state. It even started to absorb the small electric arcs to promote the transformation of his body. These situations showed that Li Changshu would definitely be able to ascend once he survived the heavenly tribulation. However, the probability of him ascending now was not big. It would all depend on the subsequent lightning tribulations to see if he would be able to obtain a greater opportunity. Sizzle. 6 large lightning spots arranged in a hexagonal shape appeared inside the vortex overhead. An indistinct face of a white tiger could be seen. In the very next moment, the white tiger roared. Lightning surged violently, condensing to form a lightning pillar that shot down. The 4th heavenly tribulation rained down. The abundant power of the great Tao charged below, following the lead of the lightning. Li Changshu grunted as his hovering body was forced down several dozen feet once more. On a beach several hundred kilometers away, a group of fishermen looked over. Some of them started to prostrate themselves in that direction. A few immortals and cultivators would occasionally pass by in the 150-kilometer radius. They would also glance over and sense the violent power of the heavenly tribulation. Who would come to a place like this to undergo their tribulation transcendence? Such frightening tribulation cloud, to be able to cover such a large area. Could that be the legendary 8 lightnings? One would naturally avoid the area where a tribulation transcendence was occurring to prevent themselves from suffering from accidental injuries. The lightning dispersed. Li Changshu flew back up again. The 4th lightning tribulation is not bad. It is powerful and accurate enough, enabling me to gain many insights without causing any injuries to my primordial spirit. This was quite a wonderful lightning tribulation. If the 5th and 6th bolts of lightning remained this way, it would be good. However, Li Changshu secretly felt disappointed. After calculating the intensity, the speed at which the tribulation cloud was being depleted, and the pattern he derived previously, his heavenly tribulation should be the 8 lightnings tribulation without a doubt. He had known that his advantage laid in his understanding capabilities, his provocative thinking, and his flexible learning methods. His own aptitude did not provide him with much of an advantage. The rule of the heavenly Tao stated that the aptitude one had upon first starting to cultivate would determine the heavenly tribulation they would have to transcend. Indeed, his heavenly tribulation was impressive. Yet, when the heavenly tribulation arrived, he discovered that it was different from the 9 extremities lightning tribulation he had been worried about for the past 60 years. Therefore, he felt slightly disappointed. Nonetheless, there were also 2 sides to a coin for everything. Li Changshu should be able to successfully transcend the 8 lightnings heavenly tribulation without any problem, and without revealing too many trump cards. More importantly, the clash between the great Tao and his Tao would allow him to gain many benefits, expand his horizons, and obtain a large number of insights. Being able to become closer to attaining ascension is a good thing. Boom! The 5th lightning tribulation landed. Li Changshu put in his all to resist it, the amount of immortal energy in his body increasing. 7-colored light shone from his forehead. This was the sign that his body was starting to transform faster to become an immortal body. Then the 6th. The 7th. When looking at this from a distance away, one could see the tribulation cloud churning. Numerous ancient ferocious beasts appeared above the cloud. Such as the Cheongchi, with its wings spread out in preparation for flight, the Qilin covered in a gray layer of flame, the Taotai, which had a huge mouth growing on its belly, and the Taowu, which was covered in long spikes. 1. There were 32 ferocious beasts in total, which took turns appearing on the tribulation cloud. A huge lightning pillar would appear each time these ferocious beasts clashed, attacking the person hovering midair below. Several kilometers away, an old Taoist priest was heading towards the South Ocean Immortal Island with his disciple to visit a good friend. He looked curiously at where Li Changshu was transcending the tribulation. The old Taoist priest squeezed his fingers together to make a prediction. With sparkling eyes, he blurted out, "That is, the legendary heavenly tribulation, ranked in the 4th place. The 32 beasts 8 extremes 8 desolate immortal tribulation." The intelligent young lady beside him complained, "Is there something wrong, master?" "It is nothing." The old Taoist priest shook his head and sighed before saying, "A cultivating genius is about to meet their demise because of their heavenly tribulation. Hanji, let's go. This kind of heavenly tribulation is something impossible to survive. Sometimes, it's not a good thing to possess exceptional aptitude. With a superior class immortal cultivation aptitude like yours, Hanji, you will also need to be extra meticulous when dealing with the heavenly tribulation you will be facing." After he said that, the old Taoist priest continued on his way with Hanji. This was the only immortal who was able to threaten Li Changshu's tribulation transcendence in this whole process. However, this immortal did not take a second glance and left with his disciple, along with the pity he felt for the cultivator about to die from the tribulation transcendence. He left quietly, having passed by the area coincidentally. This was, in fact, an affirmation of the preparation work Li Changshu had done before his tribulation transcendence. All his efforts put into finding this place was not for naught. Back at where Li Changshu was, 7 lightning pillars fell together. The sound of rumbling thunder echoed, and the living organisms in the nearby area, spanning for several kilometers, became uneasy. Only 5 minutes had passed since the heavenly tribulation started. The tribulation cloud above had shrunk to half its size, with the feral roaring of the ferocious beasts reverberating in the air. 32 lighting spots flashed continuously in the cloud, in preparation of the last tribulation lightning of this heavenly tribulation. Li Changshu, who was situated below the cloud, frowned and took a deep breath to suppress the tremor in his body caused by the clash between his Dharma powers and the immortal power. Just now, the 7th Tao lightning pillar was already 10 feet wide. This time, it should be bigger and stronger. Li Changshu's Tao robe was already ridden with a dozen holes. However, from his forehead to his neck, he was radiating with 7 colored immortal light spots. When his immortal base stabilized, this immortal light quickly disappeared. However, my heavenly tribulation is unexpectedly disappointing. This was exactly the way an exceptional heavenly tribulation should be, to provide the cultivators with sufficient benefits and a powerful tribulation experience. Thus, it would promote the sublimation of the cultivator, allowing them to become a true immortal. Li Changshu's heavenly tribulation, however, seemed to be quite weak in strength. This was far too gentle. Only his body from the neck up had become an immortal body. This was the result of Li Changshu only using his Dharma powers, flesh body, and primordial spirit to resist the lightning tribulation. He had yet to use the other methods he had prepared beforehand in this process. It's all right. There is still the 8th heavenly lighting. Li Changshu consoled himself, but he was starting to have a foreboding feeling. Lightning spots flashed continuously above as lightning coagulated. The power of the heavenly tribulation churned viciously, as though it wanted to tear Li Changshu apart with this very last bolt of lightning. Various scenes appeared before Li Changshu's eyes. The various occasions he had frantically suppressed his cultivation realm, repeatedly accumulated his understanding, and treated every little breakthrough as a huge accomplishment in his life. All the hardships he had endured, all the years he had bitterly cultivated, all the fears he had faced and all the caution he had to practice. His Tao body was sturdy like a Dharma treasure, and his essence soul was complete and flawless. Finally, all his efforts, struggles, and risks he had accomplished would come to fruition today. The 32 lightning spots flared at the same time. Countless silver snakes and electric serpents danced madly in the sky, condensing into 3 huge horizontal lightning pillars in the vortex. In a bright flash, they ferociously dropped down toward Li Changshu. There was only a sea of lightning in the space between heaven and the earth. At the border of the mortal world, above the South Ocean, divine lightning purified the world. Li Changshu was finally moved. He raised both his hands to welcome the sublimation of his life. His heart was racing. It was all because he could already sense that his own Tao would find its place in this world from today onwards. Today marked the beginning of his immortal path, and tomorrow would bring the adventure of his lifetime. Crash! The lightning tribulation engulfed Li Changshu completely. The corals below immediately melted, and electric sparks danced on the ocean's surface. A short moment later, when lightning sparks started falling, angelic music could be heard. A small Ganoderma-shaped celebratory cloud rose from the ocean's surface and stuck itself to Li Changshu's feet. A ray of immortal light shone from the tribulation cloud, engulfing Li Changshu. He was beside himself. Immortal, ascended. Tao, completed. This was the path for immortals. Wait, something was not right. Li Changshu looked down, and his expression immediately turned to that of astonishment. Only his body from the head to his chest was transformed into an immortal body and emitted 7-colored immortal light. On the other hand, his hands, arms, and the rest of his body below his chest remained the same. He had gained some immortal energy in addition to his original Tao body. In other words, he was just like an incomplete statue, half of him made from supreme-grade rainbow jade, while the other half from soil and dirt. His primordial spirit occasionally flowed with seven-colored immortal power, and occasionally looked the same. As though it sensed that Li Changshu discovered that something was amiss, the angelic music from above ceased, and the congratulatory clouds dissipated. All strange phenomena disappeared as well. The tribulation cloud, which had turned white, was still in the process of dispersing. Li Changshu quickly came back to his senses. What's going on? Such a situation was not recorded in the ancient books he had read. The heavenly tribulation was over, but its power was insufficient. Could it be that his foundation was far too solid, to the extent that the 8 lightnings' heavenly tribulation could not affect it, and thus his Tao body could not be transformed into an immortal body? sh*t. What was he supposed to do now? Cut off his own limbs and let his upper body ascend. His lower body was very important, as well. Moreover, his primordial spirit was currently in a half-baked, immortal nascent state. There was no way he could slaughter his own primordial spirit. Was it even possible to do that? This was not some form of sword technique that could be removed as one wished. Li Changshu lifted his head and looked at the tribulation cloud that had almost completely dispersed. His mind raced frantically, and he looked anxious. At that moment, he cared for nothing but to resolve this awkward situation immediately. He did not wish to become an incomplete immortal. The door toward the immortal realm was already open. He had successfully transcended the tribulation, but his Tao base was stuck. Lifting his hand, Li Changshu took 2 hasty steps forward and quickly hollered at the last bit of the tribulation cloud still remaining in the sky. Hold on! The huge heavenly tribulation cloud paused before speeding up and dissipated. Li Changshu was rendered speechless. Ran away? Before he could curse, he suddenly heard a low dong sound, which made his essence, soul, and Tao body tremble. An indescribable oppressive might from the heaven locked onto him. The words hold on determined life and death. This time, the judgment's subject seemed to be himself. The moment Li Changshu shouted, and when he felt the oppression descending from the skies, a realization dawned on him. Li Changshu, along with the omniscient Grand Master Heavenly Tao, might be responsible for his current predicament. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, ripples mysteriously appeared in the sky, accompanied by rumbling sounds. This alarming oppression covered a 50-kilometer radius, making the living organisms in the area to quiver and remain motionless in fear. Boom! Li Changshu looked up again. A 10-feet-wide gray cloud had unknowingly appeared in the sky. 2 crevices suddenly and slowly split open in the gray cloud, as though 2 huge eyes were gradually opening. The entire gray cloud condensed to form the expressionless face of an old Taoist priest, his empty eyes staring down at Li Changshu. Heavenly Tao? Tao ancestor? In that instant, Li Changshu felt that he was completely exposed, and he sensed a strong feeling of danger. His instincts were no longer probing him, but were hollering like a metal kettle filled with boiling water. Even the immortal light emitting from his upper body retreated forcibly into his body. What should he do? His current situation was one where the heavenly Tao would certainly kill him if he was perceived to be an abnormality in the primordial world. That was even if he did nothing, and if he was not involved in any karma. Li Changshu did not want to care so much anymore. Bearing down on the oppression, he yelled, "I have no intention to challenge heaven's authority. This is truly accidental. Grand Master Heavenly Tao, please hold on a moment. What am I talking about, making the Heavenly Tao wait for me? What the hell, it was the Violet Cloud's divine lightning alarm." Li Changshu hastily opened his Tao robe, removed the 60 pockets Dharma treasure shorts he was wearing inside, and put it away inside his bangle. He did not expect that he would need to reveal some of his trump cards in such a situation. This was something completely unexpected, given how much preparation he had made for the heavenly tribulation. Initially, the heavenly Tao was not that vigilant toward him. A cloth rope with a jade fragment was wrapped around his left shoulder. That jade fragment shone with faint esoteric Tao runes. It was the nameless jade fragment. When Li Changshu was 5, a group of tomb raiders had come by with some ancient wares to trade with the tribe for livestock and money. This jade fragment was treated as an ordinary jade. After Li Changshu had discovered that an ancient character, translated as the word fire, was inscribed on it, he obtained it through wheedling. Its function was unknown. However, 10 years after Li Changshu had joined the sect, he had secretly placed the jade fragment beside his master. Upon using the predictive technique he had just learned, he discovered that he could no longer predict his master's future moves, which was something he could do previously. The jade fragment's function was to avoid being found through prediction, and it was something he always carried along with him. The cloth rope was originally a piece of linen splattered with blood. It was found in between an ancient animal skin scroll that held historical records of the human race. This linen cloth should belong to a piece of clothing some human expert wore after getting injured. According to the records written on the animal skin, any human wearing it would gain the protection of the saints of the human race. However, it had to be used with pure intentions. After taking off the cloth rope and nameless jade fragment, and stuffing them back into his bangle, Li Changshu took out a dagger from it before looking behind him. The oppression falling on him from the sky had reduced slightly. Li Changshu was delighted, but he quickly calmed down again. He twisted his head and looked at a spot on the back of his left shoulder. There was an ancient talisman directly tattooed onto his skin, which was currently emitting faint flashes of light. Li Changshu slid his dagger through the talisman, breaking it instantly. Fortunately, when the wound healed later on, the talisman would repair itself as well. That was the ancient secret talisman of the mage race. It was used to evade and provide protection from disasters, trouble, and predictions. It was made by the mage ancestor to defend against the demon race. Its effect would be activated after being carved on animal skin, but carving on flesh and blood would procure greater effects. There was a similar secret talisman carved at the side of his torso, which Li Changshu cut through as well. The oppression falling on him from the sky, immediately, reduced once more. That was not all. Li Changshu grasped hold of the keyword. Protection against prediction. So he instantly put away all the other items he usually carried with him. For example, the 2 old coins sewn into a pocket in his underwear. They were claimed to be the first version of coins used by humans from the ancient times, thus containing some merits within, combined with the ability to protect against prediction and evade disasters. A demon bone fragment was tied to his ankle, and a rainbow fish scale was pasted on his thigh. In total, there were about 7 miscellaneous strange trinkets Li Changshu had used on his master, as his test subject, to see if one could use them to evade from prediction techniques. As these items were not Dharma treasures, they were hard to be discovered but easy to obtain. Speaking of the primordial times, other than the various Dharma treasures, mystical abilities, and experts, the most memorable thing was the mysterious prediction technique. Experts with high cultivation levels and proficient in prediction would borrow the power from the heavenly Tao, pinch their fingers together and instantly know what was going on at places far away. Li Changshu himself could be considered a small secret, having reincarnated to this primordial world while retaining his memories from his past life. Thus, he had to keep his guard up at all times. He had obtained these trinkets through hard work and luck. However, he would never expect that even the heavenly Tao would be affected. The oppression was slowly disappearing by this point, along with the old Taoist priest's face on the gray cloud. However, the gray cloud was still floating above his head. Li Changshu broke out into cold sweat. He might have collapsed onto the ocean surface if his psychological capability was not strong enough. He had obtained these items purely to prevent others from using the prediction technique on him, and not to use against the heavenly Tao. Any intentional disguise when one was at a very low cultivation level would instead attract attention from experts, drawing trouble to oneself. As he understood this logic early on, Li Changshu had always been using a common disguise when he was in the sect. Why would he purposely go against the heavenly Tao? Maybe. Probably. Could it be that there were different forms of the heavenly Tao? Opportunistic, energy-saving, fully operational, high-performing? Cough. That was a joke. The heavenly Tao monitored all living organisms but did not pay special attention to any, especially those who had yet to become an immortal and were not destructive. The 8 lightnings tribulation Li Changshu just experienced was based on how the heavenly Tao calculated his potential. The strength was already configured. It was only when something wrong occurred after he transcended the tribulation that the heavenly Tao paid attention to him. Originally, the heavenly Tao would adjust the strength of the heavenly tribulation for other cultivators like Li Changshu, whose cultivation exceeded expectations. This way, the cultivator would undergo a trial hard enough. If the cultivator could not withstand it fully, they would die, and their Tao would disappear. However, it was unexpected that Li Changshu possessed so many strange trinkets that provided protection against prediction. Therefore, the heavenly Tao misjudged while it was in the energy-saving mode. Also, the heavenly Tao scrutinized him, a half-immortal, exposing all his secrets. The oppression he felt served as a warning and not as a way to investigate the matter. It was the violet cloud's divine lightning alarm. It is still okay. Might be because I was polite earlier. Li Changshu regulated his breathing and wore on his short-sleeved shirt and Tao robe, as he contemplated how he should thank Grandmaster Heavenly Tao. An explosive rumble suddenly reverberated in the air, and the surrounding scenery changed. Li Changshu cupped his fists together and did a Tao salute. Then he shouted once more, "Tao Sect's disciple wishes to inform the heaven today." What happened with the tribulation transcendence is unintentional on my part. Those were just methods I used to avoid man-made incidents or disasters. The Tao base I possess currently is built on the Tao sect manuals I obtained, based on the teachings of the Tao sect's founder, and through the hard work I had put into cultivating. Please rain down another lighting tribulation, looking at how hard I had worked to attain my cultivation level. Also, please allow me to change the location to avoid any accidental death. The gray cloud above started to gradually expand. A strong gust of wind blew from all directions, and numerous gray clouds rose from the ocean's surface within the radius of thousands of kilometers as they gathered above Li Changshu's head. Li Changshu seemed to immediately come to a realization, for he turned heads and dashed toward the ocean. Previously, in order to prevent people from causing trouble before the tribulation transcendence occurred, he had especially sought out several potential locations and set up an array at the ocean bed used to speed up movement in the water. No one would have predicted that he would head over to the second location, not because of people interrupting, but because he needed to transcend his second heavenly tribulation. 2 times of the immortal ascension tribulation? Such a thing was unheard of. Evidently, it was not too over the board for him to make so many precautions to face the heavenly tribulation. This time, the tribulation cloud hovered over the ocean in a 1,000-kilometer radius. The thickness of the tribulation cloud was 10 times more than before. Li Changshu swiftly moved across the ocean surface, the huge tribulation cloud floating at the same speed above him towards the east. Above the tribulation cloud, there was a majestic heaven palace with countless gray human figures loitered around it. In addition, a dignified emperor was seated inside the palace. These human figures were made from the tribulation cloud, and they had indistinguishable facial features. Underneath the heaven palace were 2 huge statues of a dragon waving its claws, and a phoenix with wings expanded. They seemed to be about to come to life in the next instant and fight each other. Below the 2 statues was a war between a horde of ferocious beasts and a crowd of towering human figures, as though they were reenacting the Demon Mage War. Lastly, furthest below were a number of silvery white lightning spots with a tinge of purple, scattered around the tribulation cloud, but were swiftly congealing. This was the formation of a 10-feet diameter lightning pond. The lightning inside this pond was like liquid, as the pond was slowly being filled. The second location Li Changshu picked was 150 kilometers away. The arrays he had set up in advance helped Li Changshu to move swiftly over water. In the very instant he arrived at the second island, a rumbling sound could be heard. Without much care about anything else, Li Changshu grabbed hold of a sack and threw it hard. 6 folded Faraday cages were flung in all directions, for he did not have the time to open them. Before the sack could fall onto the ground, Li Changshu was already clutching a carving knife in his left hand and a wooden sword in his right hand. Several talismans flew out of his sleeve opening. Upon sensing something, Li Changshu stumbled when he lifted his head. What was this? The lightning pond in the sky tilted slightly, and a lightning waterfall poured toward him. Countless bolts of lightning lit up the sky in an instant. Li Changshu waved his carving knife swiftly and carved several ancient characters in the air. The Dharma powers in his body were activated. His upper body started to emit 7-colored immortal light as he accumulated his immortal energy aura at the top of his body. Boom! Li Changshu was completely submerged in the lightning waterfall. The ancient characters were almost immediately crushed, and he was also pressed to the melted ground. Some time later, the lightning waterfall dissipated. Li Changshu jumped out of the deep square pit, his Dao robe tattered and aura unstable. After bending his head, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Was this his real heavenly tribulation? Strong. Strong enough. Li Changshu waved his carving knife and wrote a few ancient characters in the air. The content of these words was from the manual cultivation composition, which was written by the ancient human ancestors. These words seemed to assemble into some kind of array, lined up according to the original text before they gradually rose up to hover above Li Changshu's head. At the same time, a ball of true samadhi flame appeared beside him and engulfed his body. Numerous 9-petaled lotus flowers, the size of a basin, slowly bloomed around him. This was the strange phenomenon that appeared when he exerted his full strength to stimulate his Dharma powers. Come, heavenly tribulation! Li Changshu looked up, his long hair and Dao robe fluttering in the wind. The lightning pond tilted once more, and another lightning waterfall fell. This time, however, Li Changshu bent his knees and pushed himself into the sky. With bright eyes, he actively sought to welcome the lightning waterfall head-on. 9 lightnings heavenly tribulation! I have been waiting for you for a very long time. Master, why are we stopping again? A white cloud had stopped above the South Ocean. A young girl being pulled along by an old Taoist priest asked the question. The old Taoist priest stared at Li Changshu's second location for tribulation transcendence, and could not help but gasp. What? What kind of heavenly tribulation is this? There is a heaven palace above, a dragon and a phoenix in the middle, and god-fiends below. Can this be the 9th heaven god-fiend tribulation, which is ranked 2nd place? Then, the old Taoist priest shook his head and sighed. What's up with the South Ocean today? Did these cultivation geniuses meet up to transcend their tribulations? Unfortunately, another fella is about to die because of their heavenly tribulation. Let's go, let's go. It's useless to watch this anymore. The young girl asked softly. Master, is that person unable to survive a heavenly tribulation like this? The old Taoist priest questioned. Did you sense the surrounding spiritual energy surging toward the tribulation transcendence location when that 8 lightnings tribulation was happening? The young girl shook her head. Exactly. It is extremely difficult to survive the 8 lightnings tribulation, and the 32 violent tribulations are even more so the case. The cultivator we encountered just now had died, and yet another one came. With a bitter smile, the old Taoist priest added, Heaven will become jealous if one's aptitude is exceptional. There were too many experts in the primordial times. If the heavenly tribulation failed to suppress the cultivator, a great tribulation might arrive soon after. Let's go. There is no need to watch people die. As soon as he said that, the white cloud continued on its trajectory toward the south. Nonetheless, the young girl took a few extra curious glances at the ocean thousands of miles away. The extremely large tribulation cloud was almost covering the entire ocean. The sound of rumbling thunder echoed as bolts of lightning lit up the entire sky. The wind blew, and rain poured over the ocean in a 500-kilometer radius. Within the 50-kilometer radius of the tribulation transcendence location, the waves rose to frightening heights. The heaven-earth spiritual energy from the surroundings convened over as well. The lightning liquid from the lightning pond in the tribulation cloud cascaded down multiple times. Half of the island below was already destroyed. Fortunately, Li Changshu had chosen desolate locations where there were no living organisms around. As for the organisms living in the ocean, they had already fled. The lightning waterfall repeatedly descended, and the wind and rain became increasingly violent. What was originally a cultivator's immortal ascension heavenly tribulation, which should not affect a large area, had unexpectedly become a situation where heaven was punishing a tyrant. The immortal ascension tribulation was one of the many types of heavenly tribulation. Its ferocity was considered quite weak, for, during the primordial times, immortal ascension was nothing significant. The true, formidable tribulation should occur when a peak heaven immortal attained a breakthrough to become a golden immortal. If their negative karma was far greater than their merits, the heavenly Tao would not allow them to gain immortality, and the immortal tribulation would descend. It was a heavenly tribulation that could kill golden immortals. The tribulation cloud would cover thousands of kilometers, and there were different types, unlike the lightning tribulation. Boom! Rumble. At the same time, at a place 515 kilometers southeast from the tribulation transcendence location, the young girl called Hanji, who was still on the cloud, inquired softly, "Why are we stopping again, Master?" The old Taoist priest frowned slightly as he used his powerful immortal sense to scrutinize the ocean thousands of kilometers away. Despite having the strength of a half-step golden immortal, he still could not see through that area heavily concealed by the tribulation cloud. The density of the heavenly tribulation power there seemed to be a little overabundant. However, based on how the tribulation cloud trembled and shuddered, he could still deduce if lightning tribulations were descending. There is something amiss about that heavenly tribulation. It is already the seventh bolt, and it has yet to disperse. The old Taoist priest pinched his fingers together to make a prediction. Then, he suddenly turned his body as he stared at the tribulation transcendence location, which was currently further away. There seems to be something else other than the heavenly tribulation. The young girl, Hanji, complained, "Master, why are we not heading over to take a look? If we are too close to it, and manage to witness an immortal ascension tribulation of this caliber, I am afraid that you might develop a phobia of heavenly tribulation." The old Taoist priest frowned and added, "Let us wait a while more here and see if he can survive the eighth bolt. Logically, he should not be able to." Boom! Boom! The world shook again. The eighth heavenly tribulation fell, and one could see the lightning waterfall from thousands of kilometers away. The tribulation cloud was still not dissipating? The cultivator was able to survive the eighth bolt? Could he be a reincarnated mighty figure? Let's go, Hanji. Let's head over to take a look. The old Taoist priest did not know how many gasps he made. He flew in the direction of where Li Changshu was transcending the tribulation, pulling his disciple along and with the white cloud underneath his feet to provide him with speed. However, they had just started moving when they saw a silvery white giant lightning ball tinged in purple forming inside the tribulation cloud. It was as though a mythical lightning bird rose from the ocean, thus becoming the second sun in the sky. The lightning ball landed with a boom. The heavenly tribulation power had reached its maximal, causing the waves to rise like great mountains. The old Taoist priest continued to advance. Even at the cultivation realm he was in, more than 1,000 kilometers was still considered quite a significant distance for him. Whew! Gusts of strong wind suddenly blew over the ocean. They were generated by the spiritual energy around rushing toward the island Li Changshu was on. The spiritual energy was gathering so quickly that 7-colored rays of lights were formed. "A storm is brewing, Master!" Hanji shouted in shock. That person survived the tribulation. That's right. This is a sign of a successful immortal ascension when the immortal is absorbing the spiritual energy. The old Taoist priest looked excited. Let's go. This person must be a reincarnation of some mighty figure. Look at the amount of spiritual energy. The man, no, the immortal, will directly ascend to become a heaven immortal. Quickly! Let's head over and befriend him. If we convince him to join our sect, it will be wonderful. Then, following his speech, a violet bolt of lightning flashed in the sky above the ninth heaven. It pierced through the tribulation cloud and landed on that island. The old Taoist priest's eyes widened. His flushed face turned beetroot under the illumination of the divine violet lightning. What was going on with him today? When he had thought that the person would fail, the latter had succeeded. He had just said that the person had managed to survive the tribulation, and another divine bolt of lightning suddenly struck. He swore that his words did not cause this. Hanji grumbled. Master, what is that? Heavenly punishment. A true heavenly punishment. The old Taoist priest replied solemnly. The heavenly Tao felt that he was an abnormality. Even if he transcended the tribulation, he would still be subjected to the heavenly punishment. It is over. This person is dead for sure. There is nothing good about the arrival of the heavenly punishment. This time, before he could finish speaking, the wind howled violently around them the moment he said that the person was dead for sure. Boundless spiritual energy once again congealed toward the island. Eh? This mouth of mine! Crack! The young girl beside extended her hand and covered her master's mouth. Stop speaking, master. Let's quickly head over to take a look. The old Taoist priest shook his head with a smile. He pointed ahead, and the white clouds sped up. They were 400 kilometers away from the island, which was surrounded by a sea of Ganoderma-shaped auspicious clouds. The tribulation cloud in the sky split into various white clouds before swiftly congregating into a funnel shape, in which the tip of the funnel was pointed at the person undergoing the tribulation transcendence. Pure spiritual energy flowed down from the white cloud, concentrating on the human figure, which could be vaguely seen. A beam of golden light shone from the ninth heaven and enveloped that person. There were many shadows of fairies dancing to the encompassing immortal music inside the light pillar. As they danced, they scattered flower petals around. A white-haired old man riding a crane even flew over and executed multiple Tao salutes at the human figure below. These were all heaven-earth phenomena. The current heavenly tribulation power was already very scant. By the time the old Taoist priest and his disciple were around 300 kilometers away, the phenomena were still present in the sky. The human figure, which had already completely absorbed the tribulation cloud, suddenly turned around and jumped into the ocean. The old Taoist priest was momentarily stunned. He hastily used his immortal power to send a voice transmission. Tao friend! We are cultivators from the Golden Turtle Island, and we came specifically to congratulate you. Yet there was a burst of immortal light in the ocean, and the person disappeared. Why did he escape, master? Asked Hanji while frowning. Acting as though we are bad people. Sigh. How would he know if we were good or bad people? The old Taoist priest lamented and pinched his fingers together to make a prediction. However, he failed. He evaded the divine prediction? That person should be a reincarnation of some mighty figure without a doubt. Otherwise, they would not have been so cautious. I am quite proficient in the skill of prediction, and yet I failed to find any traces of him. He clearly cultivated in the ancient times and knew the dangers of the cultivation world. Hanji, do you still want to head over and take a look? That person had already left. Yes, master. I want to know just how powerful this heavenly tribulation was. All right. The old Taoist priest looked at her lovingly, controlled the cloud underneath their feet, and led his disciple. A moment later, they finally landed on the island. However, the young girl's face had on a look of disappointment. Half of the small island was gone. A square deep hole underneath the ocean water replaced the destroyed side of the island. Master, is this how all immortal ascension tribulations are like? Don't worry. The old Taoist priest replied with a smile as he stared at the tattered, blood-stained shirt floating on the ocean water. Your heavenly tribulation will certainly not be as powerful, and will at most be 10% of this strength. Hanji's mouth twitched. This statement sounded so. The old Taoist priest pointed at the tattered shirt below, causing it to be engulfed in flames and quickly turned into dust. The person was in a hurry to leave and left this item behind. The old Taoist priest explained with a smile. It can be considered developing virtuous karma with him, by helping him remove any latent danger. Let's go, or else another expert will come over to check this place. It would be troublesome to attempt explaining this situation. Hanji nodded her head slightly. As her master was dragging her towards the southeast, she looked down and stared at the pitch-dark pit at the bottom of the ocean. Was the bloodied shirt discovered by someone? Li Changshou silently calculated. He used his immortal power, executed the water escape with his full strength, and anxiously hurried toward the west. He had sensed the old Taoist priest and young girl approaching, which was why he had given up on recuperating on the spot, absorbed the last breath of spiritual energy and fled. That bloodied shirt had been taken from a mortal soldier's dead body when he had been in the mortal world. Li Qingshu had soaked it with spiritual energy, so it should be able to interfere with those who wanted to pursue him. He had personally chanted the Expiation Sutra for that soldier, helping the latter swiftly head to the underworld and reincarnate. Ahem! The water torrent formed using the water escape technique vibrated slightly as blood trickled into it. The blood had yet to disperse before it was washed away by the torrent. At that moment, Li Changshou's entire body was shining with seven-colored immortal light. However, spiderweb-like cracks covered his body from his chest to his waist. In truth, his immortal body was not that bad. Worse still was his immortal nascent, which was collapsed and moving by the dantian. Everyone would understand that logic, but why would there be a 10th lightning bolt for a 9 lightning tribulation? Cough! Cough! Li Changshou could not help but cough twice. Feeling pain all over his body was nothing, but it was difficult to deal with having to repeatedly vomit blood. Since the ancient times, how many cultivators, who had passed their tribulation transcendence successfully, would end up in such a wretched state? He stopped inside the water and checked his jade fragment and the trinkets he had previously removed from his body. He started to become dizzy, and his body began to sway in the water. Li Changshou naturally knew that the last violet divine lightning was actually the heavenly punishment for obscuring the divine prediction. That heavenly punishment had caused the severe injuries he sustained. Fortunately, Li Changshou had reacted swiftly. In the instant he had sensed that the heavenly punishment was about to arrive, he had taken out the few defense Dharma treasures he owned. One could not block the immortal ascension heavenly tribulation using Dharma treasures, but it was possible for heavenly punishments to a small extent. These Dharma treasures were not of extremely good quality, so they had helped Li Changshou to dampen some power from the heavenly punishment. This had allowed him to escape. When the violet divine bolt of lightning had landed, Li Changshou had felt relieved. He did not owe the heavenly Tao any karma. Pew! Blood spurted, but Li Changshou used his hand to stop the blood flow. His primordial spirit and immortal nascent were too severely injured, and he would need to find a place to silently recuperate. If he did not do so, the cultivation realm he had attained after frantically absorbing spiritual energy from the tribulation transcendence would drop. He had gained countless insights when he had been transcending the tribulation. These would form the foundation of his continual ascension and would need to be absorbed quickly. Li Changshou extended his immortal sense and madly searched the ocean. After a short while, he smiled and dashed southwards toward the recesses of the ocean. Moments later, deep roars could be heard. A 200 feet long monster fish left the domain it had lived in for the past hundreds of years, and swiftly swam westwards. There was a lump on its back, flashing with immortal light, and one white jade lotus flower would occasionally appear. Li Changshou, who was hidden inside the monster fish, completely concealed his aura. Despite having severe injuries, he did not forget to circulate the turtle-breathing mantra. The monster fish did not know what was wrong with itself, to continuously want to swim toward the west while remaining hundreds of kilometers away from the coast. Li Changshou originally planned to recuperate inside the monster fish. However, a few days later, his injuries were almost healed. Both his immortal body and nascent could gradually self-heal. He relaxed, and the insights flowed to him, forcibly pulling Li Changshou's consciousness into the abstruse immortal realm. This was known as the Door of Perception, and it was a mysterious realm. Li Changshou was lost inside a strange realm. He could sense the changes in his environment, and control the rough direction of where the monster fish was swimming. Yet he could not wake up. He did not sense the passing of time while he was lost in this esoteric Tao realm. However, A bit of his immortal sense continued to drift around the monster fish, so as to provide him with timely warnings. The monster fish continued to swim westwards, and 5 months passed. One day, 2 huge metal spikes reached into the ocean and pierced through the fish. Li Changshu was alarmed. However, as he did not sense any danger, he did not leave that abstruse Tao realm. He waited quietly at the back of the fish and continued to experience and understand that Tao realm. In actual fact, he was unable to leave even if he wanted to. The monster fish, with Li Changshu inside, was dragged by 2 boats onto the coast and then into a relatively large village by a group of strong and fit young people who wore primitive clothes. With a rough scan of the outside with his immortal sense, Li Changshu discovered that the majority of the people there were mortals, with only a few of them capable of completing qi refinement and soul formation. He sensed his body sliding out of the fish the moment it was sliced open. Then, a dramatic scene played out. These fishermen treated Li Changshu as the sea god and started prostrating and dancing in celebration around him. They even started a celebration banquet that lasted for several days, while putting him on a pedestal. After all, when he slid out from the fish, his body shone with immortal light and was completely dirt-free. He looked very heroic. Li Changshu remained in this state for the next 2 months, while these fishermen treated him as their god. A young girl around 13 years old was selected to be the maidservant to guard by Li Changshu's side day and night. Another 2 weeks passed before Li Changshu finally managed to absorb all insights and break free from that abstruse realm. While he closed his eyes and checked his insides for a while, morning arrived. The young girl in the adjacent room woke up. Upon hearing the light footsteps, Li Changshu opened his eyes and stood up, prepared to thank the young girl before quickly leaving this place. Li Changshu spoke the moment the young girl lifted her leg and was about to cross the threshold. "Thank you, me." The door curtain opened, and an arm as thick as Li Changshu's thigh reached inside. Li Changshu blinked. Did he sense wrongly? It was a young man and not a young lady? He immediately changed the address. "Thank you, mister, for saving me." "Eh?" A figure entered the room. First was a beautiful face, then a short, fit body and 3,000 flowy black hair strands. The young girl spoke in a hoarse voice. "Hey! Why did you wake up, Sir Immortal?" "Immortal?" Li Changshu took note of this detail and started to feel wary. According to how the fisherman before that had been addressing him, shouldn't he be called Sea God instead? To avoid too much trouble, after Li Changshu thanked her, he left a pile of gold and silver before he secretly left without saying goodbye while that young lady went to shout for someone. He didn't go far and executed the earth escape over 50 kilometers. He hid in the trunk of a large tree in the oceanside forest and used his immortal senses to scan all over this village. As the saying went, each place has its own way of supporting its own inhabitants. Could this village's water and soil have been mixed with strong medicine? As far as his immortal sense could see, a group of strong men and women were busy everywhere, and they weren't just ordinary strong men and women. They had a kind of indescribable, aristocratic strength. As far as his immortal sense could see, there were men and women with prominent muscles all over their bodies. Each of them had arms nearly as thick as his junior sister's waist, and dozens of kilograms of millstones were rolled around by a few children as toys. Other than a small number of old people and children, most of the people in this village were about the same size as the young lady he had seen earlier. I might be overthinking. This village probably pursues the beauty of muscles. Li Changshu smiled in his heart. When he was observing this village, he vaguely felt his immortal body and primordial spirit that had yet to fully recover. The immortal sense was much better than the spiritual sense. Not only did it have a further detection range, but the images seen were also clearer and more vivid. Before the tribulation transcendence, Li Changshu's spiritual sense could at most detect a range within a few dozens of kilometers. However, all he saw were blurred images, and he could only see clear images within 15 kilometers. Now, it was different, as he could casually release his immortal sense and observe up to 1,000 kilometers away. Just at that moment, even from 500 kilometers away, he could roughly distinguish the two figures wrestling on the forest meadow and their approximate fighting movements. It seemed that they were not fighting there. I don't need to care about these details. Anyway, my detection skills have been greatly enhanced. Li Changshu returned his attention to the village 50 kilometers away. The young lady, who had taken care of him for some time, hurriedly rushed into the wooden house, where he had been staying earlier, with a group of people, and found a pile of gold and silver that he had left on his bed. It had been more than 9 months since he had left the Immortal Du sect, and he could still stay outside for at most 3 or 4 years. After that, his master and the sectarian officers would go looking for him. During this period, I should find an island and enter seclusion. There were still many things to do, and he must now think clearly and arrange his schedule one thing at a time. Naturally, there was no need to mention about recuperating and stabilizing his cultivation realm. He had to find a way to conceal his immortal power and immortal body, and simulate his original mortal Dao body. Since he had chosen to conceal his cultivation level as a trump card in the beginning, he had to stick to that path to the end. If he was suddenly exposed, he would definitely be suspected by the Immortal Du sect's higher-ups. The development of the third version of the Qi-calming turtle-breathing mantra had to be on his schedule. In addition, Li Changshu had to face an awkward fact. Because after he had passed the heavenly tribulation, his strength had taken a big step forward, and he had gained the rumored ascension. This was naturally a good thing, but 1/3 of the defensive methods he relied on before were completely meaningless, and 1/3 of them had their effectiveness greatly diminished. For example, the soft immortal disperser and many poisonous pills had already been a bit useless. When he wasn't powerful enough, the incapacitating agents and poisonous pills were powerful weapons to protect himself. Right now, the poisonous pills were no longer as effective as in making a move on his own. Many poisonous pills, which he had refined to deal with perfected immortals, could only be stored for future uses. Otherwise, he could go to the border of the middle continent and trade them for treasured herbs in the marketplace. The power of that bronze crossbow could be increased according to the user's Dharma powers and immortal power. This offensive weapon that consumed very little immortal power could be kept. Later on, he would use his immortal power to brandish it and develop its potential. Then, he could let the paper dolls use it. The same went for the true Samadhi flames. Their power increased with his strength, and he only needed to replenish his cultivation and condense the immortal fire. The paper doll's mystical abilities needed to be comprehended again, and future paper dolls would have more wonderful uses and power than before. The 5-element escape technique could also be used to enter a whole new realm. The sword array Dharma treasure needed to be brandished again as well. Some powerful talismans that had previously been impossible to draw could now be made. The heavenly precious umbrella could create some more powerful arrays. Wait! After taking a closer look, Li Changshu had many things to do, and 3 or 4 years might not be enough. It was a good idea to first pick the most important ones and upgrade the most commonly used escape techniques. There were priorities, and his life came first. So what even if he had ascended? What could he do after ascending to an immortal? Through immortal ascension, he had become a stronger ant. Ascension had given wings to this ant to fly to the sky. However, he was still a flying ant, only with clearer goals. Age wasn't counted in the primordial world, and it had been countless years since then. Even though the Great Tribulation continued to descend, there were still too many surviving experts. There were the heavenly Tao ancestors, and 6 saints above. There were mighty ancient figures, the 3 schools elders, remnants of mages and demons, experts of the human race, and all kinds of superior beings reincarnating below. Right now, he was not even a third-rate expert, and was not even close to achieving that. The important point was that he was especially poor. His immortal sense captured noises in the distant village, and the sturdy young lady crouched there bawling as she hugged the pile of gold and silver that Li Changshu had left behind. I wasn't the one who lost the immortal. I didn't sell the immortal either. Upon seeing her squat on the ground and crying like a child, The group of iron towers and King Kongs around her were still ruthlessly blaming her. I told you to take care of the sea god. How can you lose sight of such a big one? Oh, did you have to run out and yell for someone? Couldn't you just stand at the window and shout the sea god is awake, the sea god is awake? Why did you have to run around? I told you that the sea god is not an immortal. Xiongling, don't listen to your father. You can't offend the sea god. Hurry! Take these gold and silver to the village chief's house, lest these things provoke the sea god. Xiang. The surname suited them, the posture of a true bear. 1. The group of adults scolded the young girl for a while before they then dispersed. They did not punish the young girl and began to search for their sea god inside and outside the village. Li Changshu continued to observe in secret. This village was somewhat strange, which was also the only reason why Li Changshu would stay 50 kilometers away and didn't leave. There were always demons when things were abnormal, and it was also possible that there was a hidden treasure. Thousands of people in the village relied on fishing and hunting to make a living and lived a full life. The place was in good weather with no natural disasters. As for man-made disasters, a few thousand regular troops from the Mortal Kingdom tribe would not be able to take down this village, let alone those small gangs of bandits and sea pirates. However, the vast majority of the people in this village did not cultivate, and were all mortals, yet they were all as sturdy as young girls, which was somewhat unjustifiable. First of all, their nutrition was definitely not up to par. The people didn't train their muscles deliberately either. Of the several possibilities Li Changshu could think of, the most probable one was that there were special water veins or ingredients, and they were large in quantity. Often, the kind of magical objects that mortals didn't care about would be a treasure for alchemy, blacksmithing, array formation setup, and cultivation. Together with the fact that there were no traces of any foreign cultivators in this place, the few cultivators, who were at the soul formation stage, in the village should be cultivating some sort of defective techniques, which were not uncommon within the human race in the mortal world. Only then did Li Changshu become slightly more interested and decided to stay 50 kilometers away to do some observation. The group of strong people searched the village to no avail. After searching with their utmost best for half a day, an old man cried out in desperation. The sea god has returned to the big sea. Therefore, this group of villagers, most of whom had the surname Xiong, returned to the village and began a lively bonfire assembly to celebrate the sea god's return to the sea. After Li Changshu observed for 3 days, he went to secretly check the water source of the place, investigated the food commonly eaten in this village, and searched the nearby 50 kilometers, but did not find any abnormalities. Could it be that they really had an inherited body type? Li Changshu didn't want to spend too much time here and decided to leave since he couldn't find the reason for the abnormality of this place. In the middle of the night, Li Changshu squeezed out from the trunk of the large tree, transformed into a medium-sized fish, and plunged into the warm seawater to find the next place for seclusion. This place was in the southwestern part of the South Continent, and the scope under the influence of the Southern Ocean Dragon Palace. Because the Southern Ocean Dragon Palace was too far from land and not as active as the Eastern Ocean Dragon Palace, this sea was unusually quiet and peaceful. Li Changshu soon found a small deserted island where he entered seclusion. 3 months later, Li Changshu's Dao injuries had completely healed, and his water escape and earth escape had also greatly improved. He had cultivated the true Samadhi flames once again and condensed the immortal fire. 5 months later, the immortal light around Li Changshu, who was sitting in a lotus position in the reef cave, had completely dwindled. His breathing was no longer clear, he had no threatening gaze, and his body's faint fragrance had disappeared. Standing up, he lowered his head and sized up for a while, and his own aura no longer fluctuated in the slightest bit. Walking to the reef side, Li Changshu stood quietly and observed the creature's reactions in the seawater. Previously, because of the immortal's existence, the fish and shrimps in the sea would dodge. Now that he was standing here, the fish and shrimps in the sea were only alarmed for a little while before they played as usual. After thinking about it, Li Changshu first simulated the aura of the 7th stage of the Void Return realm. He hid part of it before revealing the aura of the third stage of the Void Return realm. The third version of the Chi-calming turtle-breathing mantra was a phenomenal success. I'll pass the second version to Lingy when I go back. Exhaling lightly, Li Changshu was in quite a good mood and did not want to waste any more time. He was about to return to the rock cave where he was hiding before to continue his cultivation. He was just about to turn around when a ray of 7-colored precious light suddenly appeared in the northern sky. Li Changshu's immortal sense immediately scanned and discovered that the source of that precious light was the village that the young lady, Xiongling, was from. There was indeed good stuff in that village. However, making such a big commotion would most likely attract the attention of other cultivators, and he might easily fall into danger if he rashly went over there. After some deliberation, Li Changshu took out a paper doll from his sleeve and blew at it. The paper doll shook a few times and slowly came to life. It stretched its small arms and legs and jumped up in Li Changshu's hands before landing on the sea surface. The little paper doll took 2 steps on the seawater and transformed into the figure of a middle-aged Taoist. It caught the 3 storage sacks thrown by Li Changshu, turned around, and disappeared into the seawater. Li Changshu returned to the rock cave and closed his eyes while he put his mind on the paper doll. He put his mind in a very relaxed state. He would pick up treasures if he could. If he had to do more than a pick up, then he would let the paper doll do it. After all, as his cultivation realm rose, the more advanced the paper doll was, the more laborious it would be to produce it. Since this was the mortal world, it was unlikely that there would be any powerful Dharma treasures. At the border of the South Ocean and the East Ocean, the corner of the island that resembled a large turtle. Fellow Taoists, I'm speaking the truth. On the way back last time, I came across a man who had survived the 9 heavens God-fiend tribulation. I said that he couldn't go through it, but he did. The heavenly punishment even struck this man after his tribulation transcendence, and I felt again that he definitely would not make it, but... Fellow Taoists, guess what happened next? Next to the precious pond, an old Taoist priest was chatting with more than a dozen cultivators of similar Tao cultivations in a lively manner. In the corner under the pond, Aoi regained his original azure dragon form and entrenched at the bottom of the pond without moving. The primordial world was truly terrifying. The nightmare still hadn't subsided, but Aoi took the initiative to request his mother this time to send himself back to the territory of the immortals from the Jia school. That was because Aoi knew that there were some human tribes among the Jia school, so he could observe them and learn from them what the dragon race lacked, especially their craftiness and schemes. The topic of the cultivators at the side of the pond was unwittingly changed to the little dragon at the bottom of the pond. One of them said with a sigh, "The gap at the bottom of the pond has been set up with a restriction. I don't know what exactly this dragon prince finds so bad about our golden turtle island that he actually escaped. It's not unusual for a child not to want to listen to an old man." The old Taoist priest, who was telling the story of encountering the tribulation transcendence just now, laughed and stroked his beard as he said, "Don't worry. As long as we treat this dragon palace's prince well, he will appreciate our kindness and cultivate at ease here." The cultivators nodded their heads in unison. Aoi, who was in the pond, moved his dragon head but ignored them,